100 English sentences to take over. He took over the company. She will take over the project. They decided to take over the rival business. The new manager will take over from next Monday. Can you take over my duties while I'm away? The rebels attempted to take over the capital city. The disease spread quickly, taking over the entire region. She managed to take over the conversation. The software is designed to take over repetitive tasks. We need to take over the responsibility for this issue. The military junta took over the government. The small company was taken over by a larger corporation. He's looking to take over as team captain. The cat seemed to take over the entire sofa. The rising tide threatened to take over the coastal town. She effortlessly took over the stage with her performance. The new system will take over from the old one. It's important to take over the leadership when needed. The company is looking to take over its competitors. He felt like his worries were taking over his life. The vines started to take over the garden. The chef took over the kitchen during the busy dinner rush. The storm showed no signs of letting up, taking over the entire coastline. She had to take over the presentation at the last minute. The king abdicated and his son took over the throne. The activist group tried to take over the public square. The new technology is set to take over many industries. It's crucial to take over control of the situation. The invading army planned to take over the neighboring country. The ivy is taking over the side of the building. He took over the role of mentor for the new intern. The overwhelming sadness took over her. The wildfire is rapidly taking over the national park. The understudy had to take over the lead role. The startup hopes to take over the market share of established players. The constant noise is starting to take over my concentration. The weeds have taken over the vegetable patch. She gracefully took over the hosting duties. The new policy will take over from the previous one. The pressure of the job began to take over his free time. The fungus began to take over the host organism. He was asked to take over the department temporarily. The feeling of dread took over him. The floodwaters threatened to take over the entire valley. The children's laughter took over the quiet room. The rival team tried to take over the championship title. The influence of the media can take over public opinion. He volunteered to take over the late shift. A sense of panic took over the crowd. The drought is taking over the agricultural lands. The new director will take over the management team. Her ambition took over her judgment. The swarm of locusts is taking over the crops. He had to take over the steering wheel when the driver got tired. The wave of heat took over the city. The protesters managed to take over the embassy. The sheer volume of work threatened to take over his life. The mold has taken over the basement. She stepped in to take over the negotiation. A deep sense of exhaustion took over her. The invasive species are taking over the local ecosystem. He was promoted to take over the senior position. The fear of failure took over his motivation. The river is close to taking over its banks. The comedian took over the stage and had everyone laughing. The new software is expected to take over many manual processes. The overwhelming joy took over her senses. The encroaching desert is taking over fertile land. He was appointed to take over the committee's responsibilities. A wave of nostalgia took over as he revisited his childhood home. The parasitic plant is taking over the host tree. She agreed to take over the role of treasurer. The sudden silence took over the noisy party. The new administrator will take over the school operations. The overwhelming desire to succeed took over him. The creeping fog is taking over the mountain pass. He decided to take over the reins of the family business. A deep melancholy took over him after the loss. The invasive beetles are taking over the forest. The substitute teacher had to take over the class. The sheer force of the wind took over the flimsy structure. The company is aiming to take over the leading position in the market. A feeling of unease took over the normally peaceful village. The algae bloom is taking over the lake. She was asked to take over the project management. The overwhelming excitement took over the audience. The encroaching urbanization is taking over natural habitats. He assumed he would take over his father's estate. A wave of relief took over her after the exam. The destructive vines are taking over the ancient ruins. The new CEO is expected to take over soon. The overwhelming feeling of freedom took over him. The rampant pollution is taking over the pristine environment. He stepped up to take over the leadership role. A deep sense of peace took over her. The encroaching ice is taking over the ship. The seasoned player will take over the critical position. The overwhelming sadness took over her when she heard the news. The relentless storm is taking over the region. She gracefully took over the challenging task.